schema, and so on and so forth. What the heck is data quality? Why does it matter? Why should we care about it? Then we'll talk a bit about the building blocks of a data reliability stack, so the tools that you need if you're building a data platform and how data quality plays into each of those. Brandon will walk us through an exercise about kind of how to understand data quality issues at each stage of the pipeline. So the title here is wrong, but we updated it to be a bit more relevant to what you all wanted to hear about. So Brandon will walk us through that. And next, we'll talk a bit about how to architect for data reliability. So we'll talk a bit about what data observability is, measuring ROI on data quality. I saw someone had a question about that, which we'll talk about. And then setting SLAs, SLIs, and SLOs for data. All right, so at any point, feel free to ask questions either in the chat or in the Q&A section here, and we'll be happy to answer them. So without further ado, why does data quality matter now more than ever? So data quality means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Often data quality is defined as a measurement of the accuracy, consistency, and completeness of your data. There are a lot of ways to kind of quantify it across timeliness. Did your data arrive on time? Completeness, does it have all of the values? Uniqueness, is there too many duplicates or no duplicates? Validity, is the data accurate? Accuracy, consistency, and so on and so forth. So kind of keeping an eye on data quality is important. And in this course, we'll kind of help you scale this process and put structure in place. It's important to remember that there are many types of data. There's operational data, analytical data, customer-facing data. And so ensuring data quality across all of those different types of data is really important, particularly as companies become increasingly data-driven and use data for more and more different use cases. As we move kind of into the cloud era, data leaders need data quality management programs designed for the modern data stack. We really need to think about cloud first. So while the 6 dimensions of data quality still apply, there needs to be a much larger focus on the overall reliability of data systems. And there needs to be a repeatable process beyond static testing, cleansing, and profiling, as these kind of legacy and manual approaches just are not really cutting it across the board at scale. And we'll talk a bit about that. So next slide here is we're going to talk a bit about, why does data quality matter in the first place for your business? So for some of you, this might be pretty obvious, but it's no secret. Everyone at your company relies on data. In fact, the reason that you're attending this course in the first place is because you are probably embody one of these personas on the screen here. And you're interested to learn more about what the future of data might look like and how some of these trends in data quality will affect your role. And so you might be Rebecca, a data user who relies on real-time insights to kind of generate punchy marketing strategies or revenue generating initiatives for the company. You might be Anna, who's an analyst who's the SQL queen of her company, always pulled on to do ad hoc queries and DBT and SQL. And she can wrangle data sets in a magical way. You might be Emerson, who's a data engineer responsible for building data pipelines, the data stack, making sure that data gets from point A to point B, and so on and so forth. Or you might be Michelle, who is a manager who relies on Tableau and Looker dashboards to better understand the kind of what's going on in the business. And so next slide here. When downstream consumers like Michelle, Rebecca, so on and so forth, tell you that the data is wrong, you have a very serious problem on your hand. So I don't know about you, but I've been at companies where every Monday morning you get about 10 emails about something being wrong with the data. And as a data person, that's very frustrating because, you have no idea what went wrong. You just kind of are responsible for it. And that kind of puts you in an unfair position, particularly as one issue begets another and you uncover a whole host of issues. So, question here. Does data quality field have standard certification? So Brandon might be able to, Ryan seems to be answering it. At the high level, we'll get into this, but it really kind of depends on the needs of your business and what good data looks like to your business. And so we'll get into this. But thank you for the question. You're ahead of the game. In any case, so when data is wrong, that can have really detrimental effects on the business. And clearly, this is a problem. Data issues have so many repercussions, not just for your team or CEO, but your company and your customers too. And when the game of whack-a-mole of what goes wrong comes about, there are really three main costs. The first one is not being able to kind of pinpoint the root cause, let alone identifying them. And at the end of the day, this causes lots of firefighting instead of time on revenue generating activities, whether that means building new products, responding to customer requests, or even developing strategy. The next kind of big problem with poor data quality is that when you don't know if and when the data breaks, it opens up the door to compliance risks. This is more pronounced if you're in financial services or healthcare, but every industry who regularly handles customer data is also facing massive fines or lawsuits if the data is wrong. And then third, and perhaps most importantly, and ironically, given the goal of data to inform insights, is the erosion of trust. This could be the trust of your downstream consumers, whether that's an analyst or a manager, or even your product or service customers. Data is supposed to be the truth, separate from gut-based decision-making, so to speak. But if you can't rely on your data pipeline to deliver on this promise, then you're not unlocking its true potential, and your customers will no longer rely on your product or service. But the good, or perhaps more comforting news, is that bad data looks the same across every business. And this kind of gets to your question, LB. It looks the same across every business, and this problem affects every business, and you're not alone. No industry is spared. So a few years ago, it was actually reported that the U.S. government sent over $1.4 billion in COVID stimulus checks to dead people. The culprit was outdated data tables. One CDO at a fintech company we work with recently referred to this issue as the keep your CFO out of jail problem. This is a really serious problem, and it's only getting worse. What does that mean? We know it's not good, but what really does data quality manifest as? So we can kind of better picture this and better kind of frame this if we think about it as data downtime. So downtime refers to periods of your time when data is partial, erroneous, missing, or otherwise inaccurate. In other words, periods of poor data quality. And so if you think back to kind of the days of application performance the early days of the website. If your website was down like in 1992, 1993, not that many people would notice. If your website's down today, everyone notices it. It's kind of the shot heard around the world effectively. And particularly if you're a major company servicing many, many customers. And so being able to kind of track that and improve the reliability of your software systems is really important. And so tools like Datadog, New Relic, so on and so forth have emerged to kind of do that at scale. And in data, we're at a similar turning point where we really need to understand the health of the data over time and scale testing and validation and governance and other processes across the life cycle of the data, as opposed to just being kind of in a siloed database that only a few stakeholders access. So, some more quantifiable metrics about data downtime and the impact of it. 1 in 5 companies have lost a customer due to using incomplete or inaccurate information, according to Census-wide. Nearly 60% of companies suffer delays in critical decision-making when pipelines break, according to Fivetran. And 30 to 40% of a data engineer's time is spent identifying, investigating, and resolving data quality issues, which is actually a stat pulled from the State of Data Quality Survey published by Wakefield Research last year. So clearly it's a big problem, and we need better ways of solving it. So what is the difference between data quality and data reliability? So how we understand it, data, data accuracy at a specific point in time is data quality, and data reliability refers to the health of data, or refers to measuring your data quality over time. So if you think about data quality, it's kind of looking at like a single point in time. Is the data fresh? Is it complete? Is it consistent? And then data reliability, it's like over a period of several days or weeks or months. Can you rely on your data, and can your stakeholders who are increasingly pulling your data, querying your data, rely on it? And so really the goal of modern businesses is to move beyond just measuring data quality and really focus on reliability as kind of a holistic approach. So next, I'm going to kind of ask the audience here, what do you think data downtime looks like? What does data downtime look like in your organization? Feel free to kind of choose all of the above. Let's see what folks are clicking here. Null values, 100%. That's definitely one. Oop, broken dashboards, missing data in a critical report, data validation mistake, so on and so forth. So awesome. We have a lot of answers here, and you're all right. You're all right here. The data downtime, looks like all sorts of things. And the good news is that it looks like these things to everyone in data, regardless of your industry. It could be a null value, it can be a data validation mistake, it can be missing data in a critical report, so on and so forth. So now that we know what data downtime looks like, why is it a big problem? And how does that actually manifest in the data pipeline? So zooming in here a bit, when you scale your data platform, it can become apparent that, data quality is not addressed. And so the problem really manifests itself when data producers can't see downstream and they don't understand, A, how data is being used, and B, like if it's breaking, how it's breaking, what the root causes are, and the impact it has on downstream consumers. It's not their fault. They've lacked visibility over the ways people are using this data, and there's no way that they can see it without a more holistic approach to solving for data quality and reliability. Next, if you go down the pipeline, the data platform engineers who are in the middle, they can't predict all of the ways that data can break. And so while they're fixing the pipelines and trying to, kind of understand what's going on, taking the data that's powered by the producers, which offers often software engineers, or it could be third-party data sources, or et cetera. They don't know all the ways data can break because they don't have visibility into what's going on in the back end. And data consumers, finally, may not know the provenance or potential hazards in their data, and they don't know who to ask when something goes wrong. And so this kind of creates a very real, like, cyclical problem. And so unless we're looking at it in kind of a more holistic and automated and scalable and iterable way, there's really no way that we can solve this problem. Kind of echoing that, data downtime really gets worse over time. And if you kind of look at this slide here, it has a funny visual of someone commenting that there's really no days without a data incident. But data downtime does get worse over time as the size and complexity and rate of change of your data grows. And an example of some data products afflicted by data downtime at a Fortune 500 media company that we work with is, it could manifest in financial reporting data, which needs to be accurate to the penny and available to stakeholders at 6 a.m. daily. If something isn't updated or there's an anomaly in the data, that can have very serious financial repercussions for the business. Another one is event tracking data. at this company, data was used by around 60 different product teams, and they were always evolving, and it was the critical glue for analytics and the data science org, and it needed to be directionally accurate and available for near real-time use cases consistently across those use cases. A third way that data downtime can get worse and impact things more and more over time is when you really try to start federating data product ownership. And by that, I mean like giving the analysts kind of ownership over their own dashboards and products so that they can kind of self-serve, or even better yet, the data stakeholders and downstream consumers. This becomes more and more apparent as you do distributed data architectures like data mesh, where you are kind of putting data ownership in the hands of the folks that are generating or using the data rather. So it becomes a bigger problem as these systems get more complex and the use cases get more diverse. And then finally, my kind of last point on this note is that this is kind of what data downtime manifests as across the business. And it kind of, so all too often we'll get kind of a notification from a downstream stakeholder basically saying like, the data's wrong, what gives? And, you know, it's just, these are kind of funny responses, but I'm sure they're not all too dissimilar from things that you folks have seen in your Slack and Teams and email messages from stakeholders. In the next tier, as I mentioned earlier, the consequences of bad data go from trivial to existential. And this graph can kind of like elaborate on that. And so the sooner we can cut down on the time to detection for data issues, the better. So as you know, data will always break. It's never not going to break, even with the most robust testing and diffing and validation. Data will still continue to break. So what we really need to do, and what we're going to be spending time talking about a little bit later today in the future of this course, is how can we reduce the time to resolution and detection for data incidents so that before data stakeholders see the problem, we've been able to identify it, flag that there is an issue, or better yet, resolve it. And so I'll kind of open this up to the audience, an open question for you, but what are some indicators you've seen of good data quality in your business? Like, what does good data quality look like for you? And then I'll answer some audience questions here. So we have one question from the audience saying, from your perspective, what is the biggest gap in the tooling or technology for data management today? That's a really good question. So from my perspective, how I kind of see it is there's really not as much automation as there should be when it comes to testing and cataloging and discovering and all these kind of very critical things that for so long were done manually or kind of in an ad hoc or kind of segmented way. And so I think what we're seeing now in the industry and what we're kind of moving towards is applying machine learning in a better way to detect anomalies, identify root causes, alert downstream stakeholders, kind of in the same way that we've been doing it in software for so long. So that's really kind of one area that I'm seeing a gap, but I do see that the gap being filled. Also, I'd be very curious to kind of see what happens in kind of the governance and cataloging space. I think that there's a lot of interesting things going on there, and I think there's a lot of potential, but simultaneously, so many data teams that we speak with are very frustrated with their catalogs for being difficult to implement or scale. And so it's been exciting to see some kind of vendors and approaches, even like in-house builds pop up that are making data a little bit more discoverable and accessible for folks. So I would probably say testing and governance are the two areas of tooling that are most ripe for disruption. Awesome. So let's see some answers. It has to be meaningful and relevant and usable to the business. Yes, great answer. Great answer. Cool. So next, my final slide here before we're going to take a bit of a break, and then Brandon will kind of dive into his section. But who owns data quality? Before we can even start talking about solving for it, we really kind of need to understand who should own it. And I'm going to give you a bit of a cop-out answer, but it's kind of everyone. But they are responsible for different things. So we put together this kind of racy matrix of data personas across CDO, the executive level, business intelligence, so your analysts, data science, data engineering, data governance, and data product managers. And kind of really like how we look at it is who is accountable, who is responsible, who is informed, and who is consulted about each kind of element of data quality. And so as you can imagine, the answer isn't simple and it kind of varies. And so we really kind of need data quality and reliability to be an org-wide consideration. What we do find, though, after talking to hundreds of data teams, is that generally speaking, it will be the data engineer or the analytics engineer who is responsible for identifying that something is wrong in the first place and then surfacing it downstream. And so what we'll be talking about in future sections of this course will be like how you can actually take like tactical approaches to ensure that the data quality that you're serving your stakeholders is as reliable as possible, and that when issues do arise, you're the first to know and to solve. So let's see here. Someone gave a response to the previous question. At my previous company, we generate an Excel report based on our data quality, and each customer would grade it A through F, depending on what anomalies are detected. We could then drill down to the failing companies to look more closely. I love that. That is something that we see a lot of companies doing. So spot on. Thank you for sharing, CM. Cool. Well, with that, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then Brandon will be back to talk about how to build your data reliability stack. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back in 5 minutes.